My name is Jeremy Kashman. I'm the Director of Engineering with the City of Carmel. Director of Engineering, City Engineer. So as my role here at the city, I handle a lot of our infrastructure development projects, our roundabout improvement projects. We also handle stormwater management, as well as reviewing any new private developments that come in. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some case studies that we have here in Carmel. So a couple projects and a couple up and coming projects as well. So that's what I'd like to discuss today. So over the last, since 1997 when we built our first roundabout, we've grown tremendously. So the pink highlighted area is our boundary in 1997. Our first roundabout locations there off to the right-hand side of the screen. A couple of our major infrastructure components to this city is Keystone Parkway here, as well as US 31 or Meridian Street. The Mayor Brainerd spoke a little bit this morning regarding Keystone Parkway and how that used to be a state-owned road. And they relinquished it to us along with some money so that we could make the improvements that we wanted to make. US 31 is still property of the state of Indiana, so that's a major artery running right through our city. The major component of both of these two things is that they kind of divide our city up. The east side, the west side are mainly residential, with our central core being a split between commercial toward the northern part of that area and more residential towards the southern part. This is our boundary as it stands today. So obviously we've grown a lot over the last 30 years. This also corresponds with the map of every roundabout that we have. We're actually kind of showing one that's under construction right now. So we currently have 138 roundabouts that are operating right now. 139 is under construction, and then we have 140 will start. Number 140 will start a little bit after the 4th of July, and hopefully we'll get another one in by the end of the year as well. So the Mayor Brainerd spoke this morning about kind of why we build roundabouts, a lot of the things that we do, but this is kind of one of the major ones that I really come back to is those personal injury accidents or the accidents that send people to the hospital. So those are the ones that we really have been able to limit it, not only by our roundabouts, but our roadway network in general. So obviously 2020 is a little bit of a misnomer. The good thing though is that went down because we went from 224 to 154 in 2020. Despite the pandemic lowering traffic volumes, a lot of cities around the country actually saw a spike in accidents and especially a spike in fatalities. I'm happy to report that I wish our fatalities went down, but they did not go up as what some of the other municipalities around the country have done. But the big thing here is that coming from the pink shaded area to the larger shaded area, our rate has actually went way down. So in 1996, with a population of 30,000 people, we had 216 personal injury accidents. In 2020, with a population of 102,000, we had 154. So even going back to, we had a slight uptick in 2019, but in 2018, we were still below 200 personal injury accidents. So that is a major win for the city. So I've been here at the city for a little bit over 7 years in official capacity as Director of Engineering. Before coming to the city, I was with the private consulting firm, and I actually had the pleasure of working as a contract employee on the Keystone Parkway project. So this was what Keystone looked like before. Again, no pedestrian crossings, not a lot of activity from a walkability standpoint. And really from a congestion standpoint, this road was not well either. From personal experience before the project was done, I've waited over a half hour to get from the top of your screen to the bottom of your screen in rush hour traffic. So definitely not an ideal condition. Again, The plan that NDOT in the state of Indiana had was to add an extra travel lane in each direction, keeping the at-grade signals. We knew that that was not the right plan long-term for our community, especially with the number of fatalities that would take place generally on this roadway. There's kind of some other images. To be known, once we got into construction at this intersection, there's a McDonald's in the bottom portion here. There's a church off to the left side of the screen. There's actually a legally blind employee that worked at the church that would walk across this intersection every day. So when I heard about that, I became particularly frightened, just because I probably would not do that. So NDOT was actively engaged in designing that new project. I actually worked on that a little bit at my previous employer, and at some point in time I heard rumors that Mayor Brainerd was wanting to put Keystone Parkway in a tunnel, and people were talking about different things, but these were some of the initial design concepts that we had at some of the intersections. A larger circle, the smaller, more what we call teardrop-shaped roundabouts. That's where we landed upon, because the larger circle actually has a little bit higher incidence of speed. So we wanted to move forward with the teardrop shape. Main project goals that we had during that time were obviously improve the safety of the corridor, improve the community connectivity and mobility. These US 31 and Keystone were pretty much barriers from getting from the residential portions of the community to the commercial portions. So we wanted to definitely improve the progression of traffic, but then also minimize the overall impact of the community. And the last thing there is that we had to get it done quick, because from the moment we got the money, there was another transportation project on US 31 taking place in the near future that we needed to have our roadway completed prior to that construction project. So, the good thing about this, going the grade separation route, it brings a very, very high level of safety and a very high ability to improve the progression of traffic. So this morning, when Mayor Brainerd spoke about how we designed this and the impacts of that design, and he mentioned the tight diamond interchange. We looked at that. We didn't really have any intention of building it, but as we got asked why we were constructing the roundabout interchanges, we wanted to show why we were doing that. And this was one of the major intersections here where by going with a different alternative for intersection type, we would have had a much greater right-of-way impact. With this, we are able to fit the project within the community. There's actually a cemetery off to the bottom right-hand side of the intersection that we were able to completely avoid, as well as save the structures there right at the intersection. So fast forward to when we were complete. Our construction timeline was from 2008, 2011. This is one of the intersections that we completed. A couple of things of note from this. This is that it actually improved some of the functionality and access to the corner parcel here. There's a very, very high traffic Starbucks at that location, a couple other things. They had no access from a majority of the intersection to begin with, because when it was a signal, there was just no room. So as part of the right-of-way negotiations, we actually added a slip lane off of the ramp from the roundabout, so we were able to really open up access, because what was happening was people were driving to the east, doing a U-turn in the neighborhood adjacent to it just so they could come back and get to where they're going. One thing I've definitely learned over the years as a traffic engineer is that people will drive where they want to, and you can kind of design as much as you want around certain aspects, but traffic is like water and it will find a way. So it'll normalize and find a way where it wants to go. So once we had Keystone completed, NDOT started in on US 31. So this is one of the intersections, 116th Street and US 31. Prior to construction, this intersection had pretty much about everything done to it that you could to to maximize capacity, dual left turn lanes, you name it, slip lanes. They've kind of maxed out everything that they could do. Long-term product, this was shortly after it was completed, taking US 31 over 116th Street, and then also constructing a roundabout here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. That is Pennsylvania Parkway. And then just aerial of the same thing, same intersection, interchange. So this is in our US 31 corridor. The importance of the US 31 corridor, the community and also the state, is this is the second highest concentration of business in the state. So very, very important that we manage traffic properly and safely here. Going back to what was here before, traffic would stack up from 31 through the Pennsylvania intersection, so that prior to construction, the roundabout on the right had roughly 20,000 vehicles a day running through the intersection. Now we're pushing upwards of 40,000 vehicles a day through that roundabout. So definitely processing a lot more traffic than it used to. And then here's US 31 and Main Street. So this was a new interchange that was constructed, really helped with the economic development in this area. There's a lot of pent-up demand along the corridor. Once the construction projects were done, we rapidly see projects progressing through here. Main Street now, with the completion of the project, is able to go from the west side of the city all the way into downtown, so down into the Arts and Design District. This one's fun to show just because the snow, and it really highlights the complexity of this interchange, but at the same time, what it was before was terrible. That intersection up there, the top left, I think it had a bunch of different nicknames. It had probably death related to them is what some people would call it. I'm not sure if we really had fatalities there, but we had a very, very high level of roundabout accidents that took place at that intersection. So the biggest thing about all of these, again, you can see there's no pedestrian connectivity prior to. The pedestrian connectivity here is actually under snow, so it's hard to see. But that just kind of leads us into that we do a lot of things, and we're more than just roundabouts as well. So from our bike and ped plan that's shown up here, we have a robust planning process of how we want to build our infrastructure and our streets going forward into the future, and really building a city that is, you can get around by car, but we want to give you those other options, both to commute by bike and also get the leisurely activity side of things. So since 2001, we had approximately 24.8 miles of multimodal type facilities in the city. The major being the Monon Trail with the Monon Greenway, which is just adjacent to the Palladium here. So that was obviously our main hub. But the biggest thing we needed to do is we had a lot of residential communities on the east and west sides of the city that, in order to use the Monon Greenway, you'd have to drive into the city and really it wasn't feasible to bike to it and enjoy it that way. So as of 2020, we have a little bit over 200 miles of path connectivity through the city. And major things that helped contribute to that were those interchanges that we constructed on Keystone Parkway and US 31. But then through other infrastructure projects, you can see a lot of dual multi-use path lanes up there on the top left-hand side of the city. As that portion of the city was annexed in, we undertook a lot of roadway improvements there, taking the old county roads, improving drainage, building beautiful boulevards with multi-use path on either side of the roadway. And then the bottom left-hand portion of the city is a little bit different. It's not our newest, but one of our newest areas of the city to come in to the city under annexation. And that area is there are neighborhoods, but there are also a lot of estate homes. They saw kind of what the construction was north of them with with reconstructing the roadways. And as part of their agreement to come in, they were happy with getting roundabouts at the intersections, but did not want to see the character of their roadways changed entirely. But they asked that we get at least one side of the roadway with multi-use paths. So here in the last 4 or 5 years, we've constructed a little bit over 10 miles of multi-use path there. So that's one area. And then with that becomes our one of our Bike Carmel events, actually using the roadway and getting out and seeing the city. This is actually one of my employees as we, seeing how we cross the interchanges and the ability to get through there. So we've done all this work with the bigger roadway networks. Really the main thing that does also has allowed us over the last 5 years to focus on our urban core, which we've done improvement projects on the east and west side of the city, but at the same time focusing in on where we have existing city services and how do we maximize the density to help what we're doing going forward. So one of those projects we embarked on, this is a little bit over a 2-minute video, but this is the Rangeline Road corridor. It's existing condition. The building on the bottom left's changed a little bit. This is, we've made some modifications since we came through with this project, but since we announced it, namely this roundabout here you're coming up on has gotten a lot smaller. That we actually only touched 3 of those parking spaces now. So in this area, we're maintaining 2 lanes in each direction, introducing the median, getting rid of the dual left turn lane to improve the safety through here and access to the businesses, reconstructing the sidewalks with multi-use paths to give further pedestrian connectivity to create more of a walkable area. Here's the proscenium. Again, since this was done, there's a building on that corner now. So we're coming up on City Hall. When we started this project, City Council was generally in favor of the project, but they wanted to know a little bit more before they would give their final approval on it. So that's when we undertook traffic analysis. And once we got into it, we found that there was a portion through here that we felt comfortable taking down to 1 lane in each direction, but that southern portion we wanted to keep at 2 lanes. We also had envisioned a lot of on-street parking, but especially in that southern portion, we weren't going to take 25 parking spaces out of an area to add 5 on-street parking, so it didn't really make sense to do that. So really setting this corridor up so that as development takes place along the corridor, it can kind of bolt on, so to speak, up to the multi-use path improvements that we've constructed. So this roundabout was one of the first we completed in the corridor. And then actually through the public engagement process also, this mid-block crossing that we're coming up on here, we've actually added an additional roundabout there as well, just because of the size of some of the possible future development. So that's getting ready to go under construction. And then this was one of the other first roundabouts that we constructed, and it actually was one of the key components of some of the Midtown improvements along the Monon. So that was one of the key components that we wanted to put in there. So after seeing the video, kind of touching on a couple of those items, again, the Medical Drive roundabout, that's a signal that's kind of a hindrance and a little bit of annoyance because there's just enough traffic on Medical that it slows down traffic on Rangeline. We looked at different alternatives there as far as removing it, continuing to put the median through, but the roundabout at 116th Street has volumes as such that it's probably better to keep any kind of U-turning movements out of it. Again, what we've really tried focusing on as we've built projects here over the last 5 years is not overbuilding and starting to set limits within ourselves. Sometimes in the engineering community, we can get to a point where we look at a traffic study and in 30 years we need an extra lane, so we might as well go ahead and build it now. But we have not taken that approach. We've taken a more thoughtful approach to building the infrastructure that we know will work now, and then looking out in the future. Even some of my counterparts, I've mentioned that too, is we're projecting traffic volumes 25 years into the future, but are we all going to be driving in the future, or how's that landscape going to change as well? And then this is the section of Rangeline Road. This is I might say, this section here from Carmel Drive south to 116th Street, so from the right to left, it actually goes out to bid next Wednesday. So we'll open bids for that, hopefully construct the Medical Drive roundabout this fall, and then the 116th Street roundabout next spring. This area is already open and functioning. And you see there's a lot of residential on the bottom portion of the page, so that's on the east side. One of the major complaints that we would get even before this project was no good way to cross Rangeline Road. So as we introduced the median allowed us to add some mid-block crossings throughout the corridor. And I have a picture of one of those I can show you here shortly. And then here's our next phase that this phase will be constructed after the 4th of July. So that's one thing. We've kind of replaced that mid-block crosswalk with a roundabout. So here was one of those solutions we had with the mid-block crosswalk and also push-button rapid flashing beacons to allow those crossings to take place. Protected median, so that way you're only looking at one lane of traffic at a time as you're crossing. And then this also highlights on one side of the roadway, we added an on-track bicycle facility. So we're only a little bit over a block away from the Monon Trail, which a lot of people said, why are we constructing that directly adjacent to the Monon Greenway? But we're planning for the future. The Monon Greenway is already carrying 500,000 people a year. So we want to give people options, the ability to try different modes of transportation. They also highlight our amazing on-street planter boxes that we have that we took some heat over to begin with, but I was actually able to find a picture that has nice green foliage in them. And again, this is looking, this is looking to the south. We kept the existing curb line on either side. This is a retrofit project, so we're trying to be cost effective as we moved forward. And then we also added on the one side where we already had development take place, upgraded the sidewalk facilities there as well. So a multi-pronged approach to the cycling component is giving the A riders, the B riders, and the C riders different places to ride and feel comfortable with. One of the main reasons for the on-street cycle track facility was one of our key design criteria we had to work around was this is also our 4th of July parade route. We're getting close to probably the period of time where people would usually start putting their chairs out for the parade. So we had to keep in mind that how do we make sure the parade can still adequately get through here. That's why we went with the movable planters, nothing permanent. That still gives 24 feet of roadway for the parade to walk down. And here is a picture of the parade. Interesting enough about the parade is that it only took a year and now they use both sides of the median. So our initial design criteria that we were kind of basing things off of kind of went out the window pretty early, but still this is actually pretty soon after we opened the project. I think we had construction ongoing for a while, but we only closed the intersection down for I think 2 weeks so that we could construct the roundabout, and we opened the roundabout back up to traffic on July 1st. So it was kind of a stressful situation there, but we made it work. And just to throw it in, we don't only build roundabouts for safety purposes, it's also to make people happy and move vehicles. So I found this on one of my emails the other day through some of my colleagues around the country. I thought it was interesting. So all the projects that we're doing on Rangeline Road are to enhance and complement what we're doing from a redevelopment standpoint in our urban core. So we've made improvements along 3rd Avenue, which is on the right side of the page here. You see the Palladium, and then also Rangeline Road. All those improvements also help us tie into the improvements we've recently made along the Bonan Greenway. So trying to put layer upon layer of what we're doing, and then at the same time, trying to work to getting back towards that grid pattern that was really not here once we started these projects. Trying to get back to walkable blocks, also creating different means of allowing cars to move throughout the corridor. Interestingly enough, we just did some traffic data along Rangeline Road, and even though that we've reduced our number of lanes along Rangeline Road, we actually for 2019 our volumes were actually higher than they were in 2018. So before the road diet, we were around 16,000 vehicles per day. And then afterwards, we were around just a little bit over 17,000. So we actually saw a 6% uptick in traffic on Rangeline Road after the improvements. The odd thing is historically, Rangeline Road is handled 20 to 25,000 vehicles a day. But the big reason for that was because the non-functioning Keystone Parkway and US 31, people were actually using Rangeline Road as a throughput to get from north to south side of the city. But we wanted to right-size the roadway so it's complementary to development, but give through traffic different ways to move. Another project we're working on, it's kind of been on pause a little bit, is some different improvements on Clay Terrace Boulevard. So Clay Terrace Boulevard is on the northern part of the city. This is actually looking to the north. It's a more recent photo. Clay Terrace is a Washington Prime-owned mall. Prior to the pandemic, they came to us and mentioned that they wanted to start redeveloping the site, looking to the future, and what are the different types of things could we do. See from this photo, very, very wide right-of-way width. 2 lanes in each direction, separated parking facilities. The building faces set back pretty far. After a while, we did start doing different things. This is actually the place where we experimented with some mid-block crosswalks, because in this location, people were crossing mid-block anyway. So we said we might as well allow them to construct a facility that's safer than just dodging in between the trees in the median. So a little of the history on Clay Terrace. Clay Terrace Boulevard was constructed before becoming all the way into the city. So our county highway department had a fair amount of influence into the design of the roadway. At the time that it was constructed, 146th Street did not connect to Keystone Parkway or Meridian. It actually just went over. In addition, there was an at-grade intersection at Clay Terrace Boulevard and Rangeline Road and Meridian Street. So basically what Clay Terrace Boulevard acted as an on-ramp to what was Meridian Street. So in this scenario, you're pushing 20,000 cars a day through the middle of the mall, which is the main reason for the choice to go with the larger typical section for Clay Terrace Boulevard. I don't want to quote the mayor, but I know that he had mentioned as this project was coming in, he had originally mentioned that there should be some residential components to the mall. Why just buildings and a few restaurants? Why not make this more of a, they're framing it as a lifestyle center. Why not actually make it a lifestyle center and allow for livability? So fast forward to 2021, for this area, Now the major difference is that Clay Terrace Boulevard is no longer connected to Meridian Street. Meridian Street goes up and over. But the good thing is that that connection with Rangeline Road still comes right down into our Arts and Design District. So from a local commuter standpoint, you can still get north-south pretty easy. Now you don't have to deal with the Meridian Street traffic. In addition, all of the ramp connections from Meridian Street now connect at 146th Street. So this, really what it's done also is decrease the ability to move east-west in this area with 146th Street, since there's some additional signals there. But the main benefit is that it took all that essentially on-ramp traffic and off-ramp traffic out of Clay Terrace Boulevard. So now volumes through the center are much, much lower. Now we're seeing, we're in the 9,000 to 10,000 vehicles per day now. So that started making Washington Prime also rethink what can we do in this area. Another thing that happened was, as part of some other improvements, is all the improvements were taking place on Meridian Street. There was some connectivity that was lost north of there that would easily get onto Keystone Parkway. So we partnered with the County Highway Department to help construct what is Lowe's Way. It connects Rangeline Road, but also connects, provides a means to get on Keystone Parkway also. So one thing that has done is also help reroute traffic away from Clay Terrace Boulevard. So pre-pandemic wise, and then actually, even this is, so I'm not releasing any trade secrets or anything. These are all documents that went through our plan commission last fall. So the plan then is to reconstruct a portion of the site with more mixed-use buildings. We would take the amount of retail space goes down, or actually goes up a little bit, but not drastically. I think they're projecting somewhere around 20,000 square feet of new retail, but then also adding 280 residential units. And that is in the mixed-use building portion. Starting to build some parking there along what is Meridian Street, and then also adding a new office building and then a new hotel. So roughly, well, we'll see where they land with the office now, since the landscape's changing, but I think they'll probably still have some hope to do that. Another thing that, one of the major things here too is Clay Terrace Boulevard has two roundabouts in it and then a signalized intersection right in the middle. And from a pedestrian standpoint, pedestrians flow pretty well at the roundabouts. At the push buttons at the signal, you see a lot of impatient people, and I think that's what really was starting to lead to the mid-block crossings, was people were impatient to wait there, so they just get out of their car and cross kind of wherever they want. That signal was put there because when everything was being planned, you see there's a large green space area there. That area was left open in case there were on-off ramps from the interstate that would come directly into the site. So that really got Washington Prime thinking of, why don't we make this more of a place for people to come, give them outdoor space, places that if you live here, you actually have an outdoor space, a little bit similar to what we have in Midtown Plaza, just giving options to people. So in addition to that, what one of the plans is to take that 2-lane roadway, or the 4-lane roadway, and condense it down to 1 lane in each direction with more traditional on-street parking. So phase 1 will take that roughly 65-foot roadway and condense it down to typical, I think these probably have changed a little bit, but 2 12-foot lanes in each direction with parallel parking. So phase 1 would essentially leave the existing buildings on the left-hand side of the screen where they're at, and then construct the new multi-use buildings on the right-hand side of the street. The original intent was to bring a lot of the a lot of the buildings closer to the roadway still. One hindrance on this part is phase one, where they're starting construction, actually has main storm sewer trunk line running under the existing parking. So in order to move the buildings to where they would prefer them to be, we'd have to relocate the entire trunk line, storm sewer trunk line. So that was kind of cost prohibitive what they're doing, but what that leads to be is adding a bike lane that will run all the way from the southern end to the northern end of the project, but then also allowing for extra sidewalk space. So it actually starts to create a little bit of more usable space there. So just to kind of touch on a little bit, the red line all the way through the site would be what they were proposing is the bike lane to get from the southern end to the northern end. I think we're also in discussions with them because there's an existing path that goes all the way around the exterior portion of the site. That's something that we wanted to keep intact. But this just comes to another somewhat of a road diet. The area starting to reinvent itself rather than don't really know what the future of retail is, but we were happy to see that they were starting to begin to change what was there and actually look long term. So with that, have any questions? I left some time for questions, but I went fast, so I'm not sure if anybody has anything or how to take. Yeah. Oh, 3 lanes in each direction as opposed to 2? No, we don't have any roadways that big. I mean, I think if I was in that scenario, what I'd probably do is look to if convert the intersections to roundabouts and then possibly take a lane away and make that a median. I'm not sure what is there today, if it's a median or if it's just a sea of pavement. If it was a sea of pavement, I'd definitely look to the median to start really focusing in on the access management side of things. Okay, yeah. So that, I feel like that's probably the best option there, is to try to do that. We have pretty, I don't have a picture of it in my presentation, but we have a roundabout on the east side, 116th and Hazeldale. 116th Street is a roadway that 25 years ago it was decided it's going to be single lane in each direction with the center turn lane, and intersecting with Hazeldale Parkway, which is a 4-lane boulevard. That intersection actually has one leg of the roundabout that's 3 lanes. It's one of our only ones. It's for the morning commute, but we also have some bypass lanes, and it's pushing upwards of 45,000 cars a day. So it's our busiest one, so it can be done. Yeah.
Since the bottleneck in a lot of communities, so to speak, is emergency services to the way of doing roundabouts, or especially through road diets, I'm just curious if you describe the dynamics in here and what the reception's been with police and fire and welcome roundabouts, and not just roundabouts, but some of the really truly narrow streets you've got along Monahan, for instance.
Okay, that's a really good question. I failed to touch on that. So, luckily, our police and fire are pretty big advocates of what we're doing, and a big portion of that goes back to the personal injury accidents that the reduction. So we did have more robust discussion once we started doing the improvements along Rangeline Road. Specifically, once we started adding the raised crosswalks and the roundabouts, there was some perception that response times were going to be slowed and things like that. And we got a lot of good support from our police and fire chiefs on that. Is that these are some of the improvements that we have done citywide, and if you look at what we've done citywide, it's led to the safety of our roadways and the decrease in accidents. So along our southern border, as we were looking to add roundabouts on our southern controlled roadway, we actually started getting some remonstrance from a city south of us, that ended up going into court, but in court, one of our firefighters actually, our fire PIO actually came and spoke to the safety benefits, and one of those is that, he's had family that have been in bad accidents along some of these corridors. And then in addition, we used to have 2 dedicated trucks that had Jaws of Life equipment with them. Since we've implemented the roadway improvements that we have, they've been able to repurpose one of those trucks for it to do something else. And they're not dedicated with just getting people out of bad accidents. I think the other thing that it did was really sparked a larger conversation and helped that our redevelopment director was able to speak to multiple city departments and really kind of educate what we were doing citywide. So I think it really brought forth a very good discussion on that. And so we have a couple testimonials that our police and fire have been a part of from a video standpoint. I think one thing that they will say is the most important part of responding to an event is getting there safely. And it seems like multiple times, anytime I see them, I kind of snap them, is that in other local news networks you see where a fire truck's been in a really bad accident because they were going too fast through a signal and somebody didn't see them and there was a collision or an ambulance or something like that. So I think we've had a little bit of remonstrance, but we've been able to discuss it and work through it.
What about road guides? That's a great issue. What about, you've got some, one lane's down, one lane's each direction, one on that side, the traffic on, I can imagine the fire would have some problems.
Yeah, so on Rangeline Road, we had that discussion to where, if I can get back there in time. As we have worked through that, we implemented a couple design tricks, being that, this one. So the interior curb is a interior roll curb, so that if a car needs to get around, it's actually mountable. We've actually, in portions of the median, we actually have a drivable grass product also, so that it is underneath there. Is we added, this median section here is a little bit wider, but in some of the other areas where we added the median, we actually put structural soil from outside of curb face to outside of curb face underneath there to help the tree grow, but then we also have the drivable grass. So that was a negotiation that we had with the fire department, as we said, okay, you need X number of feet. I think the magic number was 16 feet, and so we came up with 16 feet by a couple different metrics, by 14.5-foot lane, 2 feet curb and roll curb, so that helped with that. Yep.
You talked a little bit about the safety of having that developed roundabout opposed to just grass. We have a pushback. People think that until they get it, I can't see it was less.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the philosophy that we have taken is that we prefer landscaped roundabouts over non-landscaped roundabouts, and the main reason for that is we do sight distance checks. So if you're at the stop bar or the yield line, we want to check and make sure that you have adequate sight distance so that if a car is progressing around the roundabout, you can see them and react. What we're trying to avoid, though, is seeing all the way across the roundabout and then you just sit waiting on them. So, and that's actually kind of goes both ways, from an overly aggressive driver and a timid driver, because an overly aggressive driver will not even slow down as they get to the roundabout because they see that nothing's on the other side. The timid driver will see somebody approaching the roundabout and wait because they don't know what they're doing. So we've seen between adding the landscaping, that's going to normalize the speed, and then in the areas where we have the raised crosswalks, that's also dropped the speeds in the roundabout probably about 4 or 5 miles per hour. Some of the roundabouts, especially here, we've left a couple of them just because as we construct the whole corridor, the main plan is to do something all kind of similar. A couple of the pieces, the roundabouts on Rangeline, we've put pieces of art, but especially here at the city center with the large city center project. We got another project coming up on the top of the page. And then also on the southern part of the page, we've probably put something more robust and a little bit more iconic in this roundabout once we get around to doing that. But it does bring up an interesting topic of conversation when we finish a roundabout, then we start getting calls from constituents of why we haven't finished the roundabout because it doesn't have the landscaping in it. So it's a little bit of both. And when we've, some people like just landscaping, some people like the artwork. The good thing about putting artwork in roundabouts is it spurs a lot of conversation that you never really thought about. So, but it's been good. It's been a fun part of the job. If there are no other questions, thank you for allowing me to talk to you today.